Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to a Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and it's a pleasure to be with you again today. And today we want to start out with something very important, because in the past few years, between COVID and other maladies, we want to make sure that what we're instituting follows what Hippocrates, great scholar, great Greek scholar of many millennia, had said, primum non nocere, basically that our treatments should cause no harm. And this is the Hippocratic oath that health practitioners take in terms of helping patients. So we want to take a look at that. What we're instituting is not worse than the disease itself that we're treating. And today we're very honored to have a special guest, an engineer. If you put his pictures up on the screen, I want to introduce our guest, Reverend Frederick Shaw of California, a fierce advocate for children and adults in civic and human rights, who stresses education and the reduction of poverty and drug addiction. He's a director of public affairs, a spokesperson for the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International, a more than 50-year mental health industry watchdog. Mr. Shaw is also executive director and president of the NAACP Inglewood South Bay Branch, California, and past president of the Compton Branch. He's ordained in religious science at Pepperdine University and was a Los Angeles County Sheriff Deputy, organizing and implementing the Sheriff's Youth Athletic League. He's co-founder and president of the World Literacy Crusade, an international organization with the purpose of eradicating poverty and hopelessness in the inner cities through education. In South Africa in 1997, Reverend Shaw attended the Truth Reconciliation Commission, and in his role in CCHR, presented evidence on the role of psychiatric and psychological racism in introducing and maintaining apartheid, and how Africans were allowed to die from easily treatable medical conditions when locked up in slave labor psychiatric camps. Reverend Shaw helped obtain 3 national resolutions that supported children's rights not to be subjected to coercive psychotropic drugs and psychotropic treatments. He was appointed as California State Chair of the Children's Task Force and coordinated with congressional members and CCHR International to get the Child Medication Safety Act passed. The LA County Board of Supervisors awarded him for work with foster care children and youth on probation. He's a recipient of the Men Who Care Award, along with actor Jamie Foxx. Reverend Shaw started a task force against institutional racism in the psychiatric industry, comprising African American attorneys, civil rights advocates, educators, and doctors. And it's my pleasure, engineer, if you can bring him up on the screen, to welcome Reverend Shaw to A Time for Truth.
Thank you for inviting me on your show, being the hero that you are for the community and getting the word out so we can benefit the lives of those who are being taken advantage of and suffering at the hands of other industries in our nation. And so a lot of times people have me come on the shows and they applaud me, but really it is the courage of those who allow me to come on their show that gets the word out. So I thank you for doing what you do and having the courage to bring a topic like this to the forefront.
You know, it's very important. I think I told you I was born in Cuba and immigrated to the United States, so I feel I owe the country a debt that I'm repaying by putting on a truth in a time where things are so stressful. But you know what? Enough about me. Let's talk about what you have to talk about here because it's so important. I'm very confused because I'm a health practitioner. What exactly is child psychiatric treatment involved?
Well, actually, it's real simple. Child psychiatric treatment is basically the same as adult psychiatric treatment, and they many times will reduce the dosage because of the age and size of the child. But a lot of times, drugs like Prozac and so forth were not supposed to be given to children, and they have been given to children. So basically, you have an industry there that does what it wants to do and it's not based on the law.
Interesting. Now, I was reading something and I found it hard to believe, but I know that this is, you know, the field that you're involved in, and that's that 19 states are currently administering electric shock to children. Is this actually a fact?
Yes, it may even be more than that, depending on the age of the child. But when you're talking about the 19 states, I think you're talking about children maybe as young as 0 to 5 receiving electroshock treatment. It's mostly done through, Medicaid and those type of, Medicaid, I think is what we call it now, or Medicare, or what, poor people. And it's mostly administered to those children who, the system pays for. And, but even worse than that, we think it's appalling that a child 0 to 5 can receive electroshock. But let's look at it from a different angle. If they're electroshocking pregnant mothers, then that means that the babies are being shocked even before they're born. So this is far deeper than just electroshocking children from 0 to 5, who most of us in our right mind could never conceive of a real reason that you would do that to a child. When I look at my grandchild, who's now 8, but when she was 2, and I got 6 great granddaughters, and when I watched them as a baby, I cannot see any reason you would electroshock him. It doesn't make sense. So electroshock him while he's not even born, while he's still in his womb, to cause miscarriages of mothers who are getting treated for depression. Don't you think when she wakes up after she's lost her baby that she would be more depressed? So what we're looking at is the field that is creating illness and then getting paid to fix it.
That's really unbelievable, because 0 to 5 years of age, I mean, that child has only just begun their life, and it seems a little bit extreme. So you said 0 to 5, right? 0 to 5 years of age.
0 to 5 years of age. But what is more dangerous to me is the field of mental health is taking normal behavior and making it a mental illness. When I was a child, and I'm 66 years old, they were talking about terrible twos. Uh-huh. Every child goes through that, because it's not actually that the child is being terrible. He's becoming aware of his environment. So he's trying to communicate with the things around him, and so he'll pick up the ball, or he'll put his mouth on a trophy, or he will do those things and knock over things. And then don't forget, he is the smallest person in the environment. So when he knocks over his milk and you know he knew he did that, he is trying to exert himself as a child in an environment that is too big for him to go, but he got the support to do it. And that's actually a healthy child.
Exactly.
But we call that child. No, that is not it. It's normal behavior.
Yeah, you know what? It's, to me, it's amazing. I'll relate a story of a patient that I was treating years ago, and she always came in with her husband. She was an older woman, and they came in for maybe 20 years of treatment. I've been in practice about 41 years now. And unfortunately, her husband, who was really the guiding force in that couple, passed away. Obviously, what would happen? She's going to get depressed. So I didn't see her for a period of time, and she came back to me about a year and a half later. And when her son brought her and she came walking in, she was in a trance. She's a 74-year-old woman. And I looked at the son and I said, has anything changed? She seems a little bit not here. And he goes, they've been treating her. I said, well, what happened? He said, well, they've been giving her electroshock therapy to help her. And I said to myself, I never really commented to the son, but I thought to myself, well, the woman just lost her husband of about 45 years. Obviously, she's going to be depressed. What kind of chemical or physical or genetic imbalance could possibly, you could say, exist, other than that the woman needed to have someone talking to her and relay her apprehension, and God knows it probably would take some time. So I'm quite amazed that this is being done with children so early in age. Tell me, Reverend Shaw, what else is going on in terms of actually also with youth and children, in terms of in schools or as they get older? Are there different laws that have passed where they can actually be taken away from their parents or be forcibly treated? What's going on with that?
Well, back in 2003, I believe it was, I was part of a group that connected here with CCHR, and we went and lobbied, and we got what was called at the time the Child Safety Medication Act passed. Uh-huh. And that Child Safety Medication Act said that a parent could not be forced to put their children on drugs as a condition for being in school. I'm finding through numerous calls and different things, parents at meetings when I speak at and so forth, that the schools are slipping back into that practice because there's nobody to enforce it. There's no one to make sure that they're not bringing that on the parents. And parents are in a tight situation right now. They're trying to work, they're trying to support their families. And then sometimes there are single parent homes. And then the schools put pressure on, the job is putting pressure on, the kids are putting pressure on, life is putting pressure on, and the parents fold and do whatever it is that can make it easier for them to function. My job is everywhere I can speak, I reveal the truth on this and let the parents know that these people are taking advantage of it. It's amazing how in the field of mental health, electroshock, drugs that can cause children to drop dead. We have uncovered at CCHR, we've pushed out the fact that these drugs can cause suicide and homicide. No one ever talks about the fact that some of these drugs can just have a child drop dead. And so what could be wrong with a child that we would give them the death penalty? Well, we could see about his nutritional balance, because I know that My 8-year-old genius has a grandbaby, and but we used to watch her. We'd give her stuff, and then we could almost time when she was going to start bouncing off the walls. And we said, So we knew that the diet has a lot to do with that. And we're not addressing these children as smart. The same little girl, she's 8 now. She went to school, started singing, wouldn't stop singing. The teacher asked her to stop. She wouldn't stop. They went and got the principal. She wouldn't stop. She didn't stop till her mother got there. Well, of course, my daughter wanted to punish her, but I said, wait a minute, try this first. Have the teacher make her an assistant to help the other kids. And the behavior just changed. She was just bored. She was already doing homework and work a year ahead of her grade. And now, they were looking at trying to scan. And we said, no, we want her with her children of her age. And she was just bored. But when you gave her responsibility, she flipped the script, and now she's helping the other kids, trying to make them be better themselves. She knows it. She's teaching. We have to start thinking. We can't just enforce and make everybody do what we want them to do. And the final point on this, you and I, we can be watching a basketball game. It's boring. We turn the channel. We can be looking at a movie. We say it's not that good. We can turn to another movie. But now sitting in a classroom that she doesn't understand or that is boring, can't flip the channel. They can't turn the switch. They have to sit there and tolerate it. Now we won't tolerate it as adults, but we want them to tolerate it as children.
Right. Well, you know what? Children naturally are going to be testing, exploring. That's how they get to know the world. And, one of the things I realize is sometimes you have kids, like you mentioned, that are very advanced for their age. They pick up school really quickly. They're very smart. And actually, instead of being negative, they're really borderline genius, if not genius or prodigy already. And some of these kids, like you said, unfortunately, because they're more aware, they're not quiet. So sometimes what I wonder, and I wanted you to comment on this, is the goal here to make them quiet? Because imagine if we made Thomas Edison quiet, Einstein quiet, we would have never had these developments that we use nowadays. So, I'm wondering, is it just to make them quiet? What are we basing our treatment on? Or are we, like you said, with nutrition, maybe get them more exercise rather than just sitting in a classroom? Like you said, more responsibility. I'd like you to comment on that.
Well, you mentioned Einstein, others. We could take maybe Muhammad Ali, people like that, which, caused trouble against the authorities back in the day. And probably today they would be labeled mentally ill. I know that we had a president recently who they tried to push the mental ill button on him. And the thing is that mental health has no solution. They can't fix anything. If we have riots in the country, we don't hear from them. And when we do hear from them, they only can say why people are rioting. They can't give a solution. So, what good are they? Why are they getting paid billions of dollars for an industry when we could take that same money, put it into trades, tutoring, drama, sports, all of these things, and handle the person before they get to that point? If you remember, when you played sports in school, you had to have a C average. You had to have sometime a B average. So the ability to play sports and the opportunity to do that also was connected in you knowing enough about your schoolwork that you could do this extracurricular activity. Right. Now the reward is, because now have to teach us. They don't have to teach students. They just let them get through. They even have schools here now where you don't even get a certificate. You get a certificate. You don't get a diploma. You don't get any of those things. This thing is too easy to fix. I had a probation home we had some tough characters in that home. And these cats was off the streets and stuff, and we taught them how to read. We taught them martial arts. When they had penalties, they could either stay home on the weekend or they could clean and work off their debt. When they wanted to know how to run a good group home, they referred them to us. They could get, but they gave them choices. You can stay here on the weekend, or you can go in there and you clean that kitchen up, and the grill has to be cleaned, and this, that, the other, and you give it. And he had a choice. Well, first of all, when he chose to work, when he got finished, he had a product. He felt good. Then he got to go home on top of that because we never reneged. It's like if we told him he could do it, they could do it. We had kids sometimes get in trouble going out the door, and you can see on their face like, oh, God. And you say, that's on next week. So they feel relieved. Then they come in next week, they ready to get it done because they're happy. You know, we want to punish in this society. We want to in this society. We want to electroshock in this society. Why don't we be nice in this society? Why don't we help a person overcome their problem? I read years ago, and I haven't seen it since, but they gave a derivation for the word crime, and when you were tracking it down, you saw a cry for help. So we got to help people. Not that we don't be strong on them, not that we don't punish them if they deserve it, but we got to help. Why do we have 1.2 million or more people in prison and people coming out with no skills? So the only thing they can do is return back. Well, we feed the industrial complex, but we can't feed the homeless. We got to start looking at this differently. And if we do that, we'll find that we'll be able to make a major impact in what's wrong with our society. But we cannot do it from a we're going to get them. We got to say, okay, now that we've got them, how do we help them?
But, you know, very, very good point you're making, Reverend Shaw, because, you know, when you look at what's happening, obviously there's a lot of things that we need to reevaluate and take a look at. And modify so we can, you know, go in a more positive direction. I was going to ask you a question because you had brought this out, and I wanted you to speak about it. What do these chokeholds and warrior training and killology have to do with mental health?
Well, actually, it has causes. First of all, you have law enforcement officers approaching citizens in a military type way. In killology, under Dr. David Grossman, he's a professor of psychology at West Point. So it's interesting, he's a professor at West Point, but he thinks the solution is to teach law enforcement officers to treat citizens as if it's a military type zone. The thing is, he can't trick some of us like myself because I was a law enforcement officer.
Right.
If you ask me, was law enforcement dangerous? It is. Could a law enforcement officer be killed at any minute? Could. Is he in imminent danger every second? No. 90% of all the interaction with law enforcement does not have to end up violent, with anybody killed, anybody injured, or anyone treated with disrespect. There is a portion of it, and there are certain situations, you always have to be alert, but there are certain situations that most officers go through a whole career. I went 13 years, never fired my gun at a person.
Wow.
You know, it's not like, you know, I have to get my gun out every time I talk to a person. If I'm looking at an 80-year-old lady, I still walk up carefully. I'm watching to see if I see anything happening. But I can't kill her because she's nervous, or her keys are jingling, or right. But if somebody's teaching me that it's that danger out there, that you're going to die in a minute, if somebody's putting fear in me, and this is supposed to be an authority, then are we doing the officers a great disservice when we punish them for what they're being taught?
Right.
Now, most of us are smart enough to say, no, it's not that way. I know that because I grew up in the inner city. But maybe people who don't or didn't grow up in the inner city don't have viewpoint. All they've seen is what is on TV and stuff like that. But like I said, I've never had to shoot. I could have killed about 3 people legally, but that wasn't my intention. And I was totally aware of the situation. And one time I could see that the person didn't have their finger on the trigger guard. They had a gun, but they didn't have it on the trigger guard. Now, maybe God blessed me with a little bit more than the average, whatever, I don't know. But I never felt threatened in that situation because I was in control of it. So I can't register another man's fear base. But at the same time, to say that every second you're under attack, you know, you should kill without hesitation and reservation, without guilt, to say that you have better sex at night when you kill somebody, that is ludicrous. And anyone who calls themselves an expert in the mind should check their own mind using those type of techniques.
Exactly. You know, I was going to say to you, Reverend Shaw, is it seems to me that being trained that way is fostering a dangerous environment. Anyone who then is trained that way is going to be so fearful that expecting that to occur, you're kind of like predisposing that to happen. And as a surgeon, you know, if I went into surgery thinking I'm going to have all kinds of problems, that's what's going to end up happening. We're getting to the end of the show, and I wanted to thank you for participating. It was a great show again with you.
I love coming on your show. You're a great host. This is a very important topic, and it needs to be looked at, addressed, and investigated. And I just appreciate the opportunity. If I can, I'd just like to help people go to the cchrint.org, and you can wealth of information. You can even put your medicines in the database and find out the side effects of those drugs. We have Fight for Kids campaign, things like that. But start off at cchrint.org. And if any of you want to know more about what I'm doing, cchrtaskforce.org, cchrtaskforce.org. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. You got it. And for our viewers out there, definitely check out the cchr.org website, Citizens Commission on Human Rights. And for those professionals out there who actually are looking to help and to make things for the better, also avail yourself of all the videos and information that are there. There are some psychiatrists, psychologists who actually work with CCHR. And it's a pleasure to have had you, Reverend Shaw. And for those of you who are watching, may you have a great weekend. And we will see you on the next episode of A Time for Truth. Have a great weekend.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet